Got a couple more minutes. Yep.
I'm just wondering, if you're building capacity of somebody to be able to use MSc as part of their evaluation process, what kind of skills do you want to train people to be able to do? Like what are the most important skills that they need to have to do MSc?
Yeah. Well, MSc has a natural capacity building component because it's cyclical. Like you can collect the first lot of stories and they might be really awful, really terrible, really bad, but one of them might be a little bit better than the others. And to begin with, the selection process will just choose stories for their structure. Later on, you start choosing them for their content. Like you'll have 5 that are bullet points and 1 that's a story, and you choose that one and people go, oh, that's what a story is. So it has a self capacity building element to it because it's iterative. But when we train people in MSc, we train people for between 2 days and 5 days. 5 days is with an organisation that's or people that have a lower level of education. So in a sort of more highly educated group like you guys, it would be a 1 or 2 day process. And we would train you in how to do interviews, how to probe for stories, how to define your domains of change, working out what you want to know, how to do the selection process, and so forth. But a lot of it is about interview technique.
So
yeah, and how to
interview then participant observation.
It's pure interview. It's either the data is collected by interview or group discussion. It's an inquiry process. It's not an observational process. Yeah, that's the way I do it. I must admit, though, there's a bit of a funny story here. Is Rick, when he first put the methodology together, only ever intended that people would write their observations down. And he only written a few paragraphs on it by then, and I completely misinterpreted it, as you do, and then just went off and interviewed people and ran focus groups and collected all these first-person stories, and then told everybody that was what it was. And Rick was, oh, is that how you did it? It's not what I had in mind, but that's good. And so since then, it's been like that. But that comes from my background of working very grassroots and really believing in that you have to hear what people have got to say.
Is it possible that most significant change technique could be built into a conventional evaluation that you may be doing, like you may be going in for an interview?
Yes, we do that, but we actually have a slightly modified, we give it a different name actually. We use what we call a summit technique, the evaluation summit technique, which we collect quantitative data, work out evaluation questions. We as consultants go in, we do a whole load of semi-structured interviews.
Yeah.
The first part of the semi-structured interview is an MSc question, the latter parts are more specific questions, and then we develop a report with all the results in, and we include 4 most significant change stories in the back. So you can use a modified version of MSc for summative judging, external evaluation, but we give it a different name and we call it, because it's different.
Just be coming in more as annexures and attachments, or they must be filtered?
No, because
go through the process.
We still run a summit the summit involves large groups. Sometimes I run workshops of 200 people analysing stories of significant change as a part of a big evaluation. And they select the most significant ones. The ones that go into the evaluation report are selected by a large group process. But they look at the issues too. They look at all the data that's not happened, then we go through this process of keep, drop, create. What do we want to keep? What do we drop? What do we want to create? What questions haven't we answered? And we develop recommendations. So it's participatory evaluation, but it's external, one-off, summative. Yeah.
You mentioned that you encourage quantitative data to increase credibility of the findings. But in qualitative research, you normally do triangulation. Is that not? Have you found that doesn't increase credibility, or?
Well, it depends what you're triangulating with what. Of course, triangulation is great. Like PRA techniques use visual tools to triangulate in different perspectives and things like that. In the world I work in a very hard-nosed environment with lots of scientists who doubt. I'm a pure believer in qualitative inquiry, and triangulation without some numbers wouldn't help. They just want to know things like, well, how much money did you put in this project? How many people attended? How many projects were there? How many people actually used it? How many didn't? And then give us the stories. Tell us about behavioural change. But they just want the results surrounded by a little bit of how much, how many, and how much money was spent. And then they can do their cost-benefit analysis on it if they want. Yeah, it just needs a bit more of a fuller picture, like the whole picture, rather than just the stories. Yeah. So it's not quite triangulation because it's about using mixed methods, I think. I mean, triangulation could be 3 types of qualitative data, couldn't it? But what we're talking about is using a combination of measurement and description. Yeah. Yep.
If you are working at the village level, commune level, and you're trying to bring ICTs to X number of villages, and there's so many people, like 32,000 or something like that, and you need to ask them to write their stories. Do you intend to go to every household?
No. It's sampling, just like in OM. You use sampling techniques, but we often use snowball sampling. So like, have you heard of anybody doing really amazing stuff out there? You go and find that person and interview that person. You know, we're often searching for instances of impact. Or you could use, like, we'll go and visit 5 villages and talk to a random stratified sample of so many people as well, if you like. It all depends on the purpose of the evaluation, how credible it has to be. Yeah. Yeah.
A question regarding gender issue. Do you sample like women discussion, or do you sample like children or elderly?
It depends on your question and what you're trying to find out. It's all back to the what's the question, what's the evaluation question. I mean, what we often do, we definitely do, is record who answers. We normally have a little spreadsheet which says how many stories we've got from women, how many from men, where they were, which communities, and you can look at what you're missing, and you can bias it in any way you like, depending on what you need to know. But it's not built in there naturally. It's all about what question do you have and how do you design your system up to meet that need. But you could use MSc somehow, I don't know quite how, for gender to sort of like understand the difference between women's stories and men's stories. We have done selection where women have chosen one story and men have chosen another, and then we've looked at the differences and had dialogue about why there were differences. I mean, you can play around with MSc quite a lot. Yeah. Okay, but I think I should stop because you're supposed to do your buzz group at this point. Yeah, and we are running behind on the agenda.
Thank you, Jess.